Hi, Michelle. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Rosanna Davis, California licensed midwife, and this is my colleague, Michele Wellborn, licensed midwife, and we're both CALM board members. And we were invited to give some tips for California newborn screen, specifically for community midwife providers.
Thanks, Rosanna.
So we're just going to go through some practical suggestions for success and less stress. And I just wanted to tell a real short little story about how I became more proficient and efficient at getting newborn screenings done. When I first started practicing in 2005, my very first client, I didn't have much confidence doing newborn screens. I had learned at a birth clinic where they did them kind of barbarically and just took a loose knife and poked the baby's heel to whatever depth. Anyway, I was advised to do it with the prescribed depth lancets. And I got some counseling from my mentor ahead of time, went out to do the newborn screen. And unfortunately, given my lack of experience, confidence, and the fact that there was a family dog in the room who was very protective, who was barking at us, and the baby was crying, I didn't get an adequate specimen, had to redo it the next day, and it was very upsetting for both the baby, me, and the mom. So I swore I'd find a way to do it better. And since then, that was a very hard lesson. I've been able to get specimens and not have to have any rejected or have to redo them. So with that, I'm going to pass things to Michele here. We're going to talk about some suggestions for success and less stress.
Excellent. Thanks, Rosanna. I can relate. I haven't had that exact story, but yeah, it can be stressful. And the key to not being stressed when you're doing a newborn heel stick is to be prepared. So, I like to think of the midwifery wheelhouse as being education and informed choice discussions. So you'll do all the things that you normally do as a midwife and share all of the information. It's important if you have biases to share those as well. If you do have a client who refuses to do a newborn screen, you need a signature for refusal, and you do need to mail in or send in that collection card, even though they have refused. Excuse me. The one important thing to think about when you are doing or preparing to do a newborn heel stick collection, you want to think about the timing consideration. So there's a couple of different parts to that. The first part is when is it most effective to do the test? And that is going to be between 24 and 48 hours. That's the optimal timing for the test. And so that would correlate really well with our day 1 or our day 2 visit if you're doing those. The secondary consideration is how is the drying time of the blood spots, and then when you can send the mail out, or when you could have GLS, our overnight service, pick up. And so you'll need to call GLS to figure out what the collection time is for your area. For my area, the collection time is between 2 and 6 p.m. Mm-hmm. So I know that I need to have at least an hour and a half for that card to dry before I put it in the envelope and send it off to GLS. So that means I need to have collected that by, 4 o'clock in the afternoon to make sure that it's in on time. So those are some things to think about. It's also important to, and Rosanna and I both feel pretty passionately about this, to complete the specimen card before the visit. You can do this in the comfort of your own home with your computer and all of your paperwork out, and you can easily fill it out on the table. And we all know that a day 1 postpartum might be kind of chaotic. There could be dogs, as Rosanna has mentioned, or siblings running around, or just no surfaces to be able to easily write on. So it's really helpful to fill that out ahead of time. And as soon as I walk in the door of the client, I ask them to proofread my paperwork to make sure that I've entered everything correctly before I do the collection. I don't want to have to do a collection twice because I have to redo the paperwork. And then I think this is key, creating an environment that's conducive to good collection. I think, you would never consider starting an IV or doing a blood draw if you were standing on one leg in poor lighting, you know, with the window open. I mean, you would want to make sure that you have good light and that you have good ergonomics and that you have all of your equipment and everything that you might possibly need for this heel stick right within arm's reach and maybe out of reach of the dog or the sibling. And then Rosanna, I'd love you to talk about prep because you have the most amazing supply prep package.
Yeah, so I learned this from my preceptor. This is how she did it. I put together, so I know many midwives take the newborn screen supplies from the birth kits that the parents order ahead of time. I don't do it that way. I purchase the individual supplies and then put together my own packets for my clients, including a little kit for the newborn screen. And I include 2 underpads. One is a baby scale liner that I put my supplies on when I lay them out, and the other is a small chucks to put underneath the baby and on the parent's lap while I'm doing the collection so that they don't get any blood on their clothing. Gauze, an infant heel warmer that's specifically designed for the appropriate temperature, and lancets. I put 3 out here so you can see the type of lancet that I have, but I only put 2 lancets in the packet. And alcohol prep pad, cotton boo-boo sticker, the dots, dot shape, and gloves. And then when I go to lay things out next to where I'm going to be doing the specimen collection, I open everything up so that it's easy to access when it's time.
Excellent. I do as well. I love that.
Yeah, and with that, here's Michele with a baby she did a newborn screen on recently.
Yeah. So this little baby is just demonstrating the swaddle that I like to do. So a lot of midwives, I think Rosanna included, don't swaddle babies for the newborn heel stick, but I do. And I swaddle them with one leg sort of bent up in a crouching position and one leg entirely out of the swaddle. That way I have, one free leg to work with, and there's less likelihood of them kicking me with their other leg and causing me to color outside the lines. So I swaddle the baby up pretty tightly. And with that one leg exposed, I usually then put the baby on their parent's chest. And then I have the parent hold their hand over the baby's heel and one over their back. And then if the baby's cool, like below 98 degrees, I would put a heating pad or a hot water bottle over the parent's hand. That way the parent can feel if it's getting too warm and they can take it off. And I have them just sit there and hold the baby. And while they're holding the baby and the baby is warming up, and the optimal temperature, I think, is right about 99 degrees. So I will take the baby's temperature periodically during our discussion. I'm preparing the parents for what to expect and describing how the test goes so that they're ready and prepared. And maybe we can do the next slide, Rosanna. So yeah, our top tips: be prepared. Yeah. Prepare the parents, especially that you might need to poke them a second time, like Rosanna said. I swaddle with one leg out. I really think warming up the baby is an important step. And
I also swaddle.
So you do? Okay.
I do swaddle. Yeah, I think it's helpful to help keep the baby feel calm and
cozy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. They settle
warm.
A little bit.
Yeah, it helps them settle their nervous system. Yeah.
And then Rosanna and I both really feel like the upright position for the baby is more conducive to the test. When I first started out, I used to always try for breastfeeding. And so I do sort of a cross cradle breastfeed. And I found that's not optimal for a number of reasons. One, babies might chomp down on a nipple if they're uncomfortable, which is super uncomfortable for the breastfeeding parent. And then I find that when they're held in sort of a horizontal position, they just don't bleed as freely. Like gravity is very helpful. So I do tend to put them upright, usually over the partner's shoulder. And I have the postpartum parent offer a baby a finger to suck on so they can suck and soothe themselves during the collection. And the reason I usually have the partner hold the baby is that if there's sutures, they don't feel uncomfortable sitting. And then the postpartum parent can be standing nearby or kneeling nearby. And then I think we have a couple photos.
Yeah, thanks to Michele and her client here.
So
That's
we've
the
got
positioning that
siblings
Michele does.
Yep. Siblings, everything. I always kneel in front of my clients. So in this case, it was the partner was taking the photograph. So I didn't have the partner hold the baby, but the postpartum parent is the one holding the baby in this case. But I always kneel, and I know that Rosanna likes to sit across from her parents. But I prefer to kneel. I feel like I get a better view of what's going on and I can maneuver a little better. And then we have a couple other photos too.
Yeah, so what I'll do is put two chairs together facing each other. Then the parent also has some back support so they can sit up straight and the baby can dangle a little bit more. But Michele and I are also very different height, and just ergonomically, this works well for Michele, and me sitting at the same level works better for me.
Yeah, you'll learn what works best for you, for sure. So, and I think there's just one more showing a little wiggly baby.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Michele reports this baby wiggled and squirmed a bit, but didn't cry.
Yeah, maybe a little whimper, but no real cry. And then it's not my most perfect sample, but it's a decent sample.
Good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's something we should talk about, Rosanna, that, send in what you've got, and sometimes you will color outside the lines, but yeah. Do you want to do the summary?
Yeah, so the takeaway points are to be prepared, prepare the parents, and make sure the baby's adequately warmed, and be careful with what kind of foot warmers you use, that they won't injure the baby. So, for instance, don't use hot diapers from microwave or tap water. Some people's tap water is too hot, and certainly microwave. And there are chemicals in diapers that shouldn't be warmed and put on baby's foot. So there are products that you can buy from medical supply houses that are specifically designed for warming a baby's heel.
That's great.
So questions, feedback, comments can be directed to info@calmidwives.org. Thanks, everyone, and good luck with your newborn screens.
Yep, good luck. Thank you.